Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana Namaskaram. Today I'm going to be talking about verses 4 and 5 of Upadēśa Taṉippākkaļ. These are the verses that Bhagavan composed in 1912, when devotees first began to celebrate his birthday. Needless to say, he didn't encourage that, and these are the verses he wrote expressing his views about birthday. And as always, whenever Bhagavan touches on any subject, he takes the opportunity to remind us of his core teachings, which is that we should investigate and know what we actually are. So what he says in the first verse, he says, Pirandanal Edo. That's a question, whatever is birthday. So he starts by asking a question, then he addresses the devotees, Peru Vira Savior, you who are making a great celebration. That is, he's addressing them. Oh, you who are making a great celebration. And then he says, what is the real birthday? Pirandadu Evan Nam Endrupeni. That means carefully attending to where we were born. Pirandu Iratal, Indru, Endrum Ondrai Ilahu, Porolil, Pirinda Andre, Pirindanalam. So what that means is only that day in which one is born in Porol. Porol means the one real substance. Or only that day in which we are born in the one real substance. Pirandaru Iratil Indru, Endrum Ondrai Ilahu, which always shines as one without being born and dying. Only that day is the birthday. So to put the whole sentence together, only that day when, carefully attending to where we were born, we are born in the real substance, which always shines as one without being born and dying, is birthday. So what he's saying here is the real birthday is that day when we are born in the substance. Born in the substance here means the ultimate substance, the real substance, which is Satchit, pure being awareness. So what's it mean to be born in that? It means that we, as egos, subside and merge back into that. And how we subside is by carefully attending to where we were born. So where we were born means the source from which we have risen. So the source from which we have risen is our own being. By carefully attending to that, we will subside and dissolve back into our being, which is what Bhagavan describes metaphorically as being born in the substance being our own being, which is awareness. So Satchit, we can say, pure being awareness. And that substance always shines as one. As one implies as one without a second, without being born or dying. That is, it never comes into being and it never ceases to be. It is the one eternal reality, that from which all other things derive their seeming existence. So that's why it's the ultimate substance of all things. Just like gold ornaments do not exist independent of gold, which is their substance. So everything, both ego and everything known by ego, uh, does not exist independent of its real substance, which is pure being awareness, Satchit. That is the substance in which we must be born. We are born in that by ceasing to rise as ego. Of course, that substance is eternally our own reality. We are never anything other than that. But we seem to have risen as ego. So that our subsiding and dissolving back into that in such a way that we never rise again is what Bhagavan describes metaphorically as being born in the substance. Being born in the substance implies being born as the substance. In other words, remaining as we actually are, ceasing to rise as ego. So for Bhagavan, that is the real birthday, because the birthday that we normally celebrate is just the birth of this body. Whatever is born is certainly going to die. So celebrating our birthday is, I mean, our whole life is just a journey from birth to death. So you can't have birth without death. As Bhagavan Krishna says in the Gita, that which is born will certainly die, and that which dies will certainly be born. In other words, it's a perpetual cycle. So we want to put an end to that cycle of birth and death. And that verse, incidentally, is one of the verses that Bhagavan selected and translated into Tamil. So being born is not something to celebrate. We want to put an end to both birth and death. That which is born and dies, well, what's actually born is the body, but that which undergoes the experience of being born and dying is ego. So the death of ego is the death to end all deaths. And when ego dies, there's no further birth. So that death of ego is what Bhagavan describes here as being born in substance. The next verse, oh, sorry, I'll just see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, just for completeness, I'll just read my explanatory paraphrase for this first of these two verses. What is the real birthday? You who make a great celebration about a so-called birthday, only that day when, by carefully attending to ourself, the source from which we were born as ego, the false awareness I am this body, we are born in Porol, the real substance of Vastu, which without ever being born or dying always shines as one, namely as the one infinite and immutable real awareness I am, is the real birthday. So the second verse is, what Bhagavan says in the second verse is, Pirandanal enum pirapuku aradu. That means not weeping for birth, implying we're not weeping for having been born, even on one's birthday, even on birthday. Pirandanal utsavame penal iranda pinatiku alankarikum petpu. Cherishing birthday as a festival is infatuation that adorns a dead corpse. That is, he's giving an analogy. Celebrating a birthday is just like the infatuation of adorning a dead corpse. Alankarinko means decorating and adorning it. So if you decorate a corpse and celebrate a great festival about it, that is no more foolish than cherishing a birthday. Why? Because the birth and death are they're inseparably joined. What is born will die, and what dies will be born. Or that which undergoes the experience of birth and death, having been born, it will certainly undergo the experience of having undergone the experience of birth. It will certainly undergo the experience of death. Having undergone the experience of death, it will certainly undergo the experience of birth again and again and again. So what he's saying here is the verse continues, Endre tane unandu odungal tane unavu. So the meaning of the whole verse is saying, or saying here, that is the word endre literally means saying, but it implies understanding. Not weeping for birth, even on birthday. Cherishing birthday as a festival is infatuation that adorns a dead corpse. So we're understanding that only subsiding, being aware of oneself is awareness. So what this implies is understanding, instead of weeping or lamenting for one's birth, at least on one's birthday, cherishing one's birthday as a festival is like the infatuation of someone who adorns or decorates a dead corpse. Only to understanding that, only subsiding and dissolving forever in one's real nature is what is implied by investigating and thereby being aware of oneself as one actually is real awareness. So the final clause of the verse, Tane unandu odungal tane unavu. That is a beautiful definition of what is real awareness. Real awareness is only subsiding, being aware of oneself. In other words, knowing oneself as one actually is, thereby subsiding. That alone is the real awareness. Knowing anything else is just a semblance of awareness, because nothing other than oneself actually exists. So knowing other things is knowing things that don't exist as if they exist, just like in a dream. Whatever we experience in a dream, we don't consider it real knowledge. If in a dream we hear the news that, for example, maybe in a dream we receive the news that we won the lottery. It seems, so long as we're dreaming, it seems real, very real. When we wake up, we understand that the lottery we won and we who won it are all mental fabrication. That it's all completely unreal. So whatever we know in a dream is not real knowledge. Whatever we're aware of in dream is not real awareness. We're not being aware of what actually exists, but merely what seems to exist. Our present life is no more real than a dream. So whatever we experience in this life is not real awareness, or being aware of any phenomenon is not real awareness. The real awareness is only being aware of ourselves as we actually are. So in both these verses, Bhagavan is emphasizing that he takes this opportunity, as I say, he takes every opportunity to remind us of his teachings. So rather than celebrating a birthday, which he compares to decorating a corpse, we should be focusing our attention on our own being and thereby subsiding, knowing ourselves as we actually are, subsiding and dissolving by knowing ourselves as we actually are. This um, uh, wait a second, just trying to remind myself. Oh yeah, many years later, while discussing the meaning and implication of these two verses with Lakshman Sharma, Bhagavan explained what he meant in the first verse by Pirandu Iratil on Indru, Endrum Ondrai Ilahu Poralil Pirandidu. That is, being born in Poral, real substance, which always shines as one without being born and dying. So when explaining that, so when Bhagavan explained that to Lakshman Sharma summarized his explanation in a Sanskrit verse. And on seeing that Sanskrit verse, Bhagavan at once translated it as a Tamil verse, which is now verse 11 of Ulladu Anubandham. So I'll just read that verse also. Because though it was written probably nearly, well, maybe 15 to 20 years later, it's very relevant to these two verses. So what Bhagavan says in this verse 11 of Ulladu Anubandham is, Pirandadu Evan, who has been born? Nan Pirandadu Evan Endrupeni Tan Brahma Mulate Pirandan Avane Pirandan Avan Nittum Munisan Avan Dinamum Navan Nadu. What that means is Pirandadu Evan, who has been born. Tan, oh, sorry, I was reading Anvayam instead of Padichatam. Padichatam, so Pirandadu Evan, who has been born. Brahma Mulate Pirandadu, Pirandadu Evan, Nan Endrupeni Pirandan. He who is born in his own Brahma Moolam, that is in the source, or in the source Brahman, by carefully investigating where I was born, he alone is one who has been born. He is eternal, Munisam, the Lord of sages. He is daily new. In other words, he's daily new and fresh. He's always fresh. Investigate. So the meaning of the whole thing is, the literal meaning is, who has been born? Carefully investigating where I was born, he who has been born in his source, Brahman, he alone is he who has been born. He is eternal, the Lord of sages. He is daily new. Investigate. And my explanatory paraphrase for that is, who has really been born? He who has been born in and as his source, Brahman, being firmly established there by carefully or tenderly or lovingly investigating himself, the source, where I, namely ego, the rising I, which is what is always aware of itself as I am this aging and perishable body, was born. He alone is one who has really been born. He is eternal, being immortal, imperishable, and immutable. He is Munisam, the Lord of sages. He is daily or always new and fresh, being the ageless and ever fresh awareness I am. investigate yourself and be born thus as Brahman. So for Bhagavan, what Bhagavan is saying here is being born in our source. This is what he described in the first of these two birthday verses as being born in substance, Porolil Pirinda Andre, the day in which one is born in substance. That substance is Brahman, which is our source, the source from which we've risen. Being born in our source, in other words, subsiding and dissolving back into our source, that alone is real birth. So only one who has been born in the source, Brahman, is one who has been truly born. Why? Because if we're born in a body, if we're born as a body, this is not real birth, because this body is perishable. It's what is the body that is born is one day going to die. So this is at best only a temporary birth. We are born just to die. Whereas if we are born in our source, Brahman, we are born eternally. That's why he, after saying Avane Pirandan, he alone is born, meaning he alone is really born. The next clause is Avanitam, he is eternal. So the birth in Brahman, the birth in a body is a fleeting birth, a temporary birth, whereas the birth in Brahman is the permanent birth. So that alone is the real birthday. That alone is the real birth. So if we are born in our source, we are eternal, and we become the Lord, Munisan, means the Lord of Munis. That's referring to God. God is the Lord of all sages. So we become that Lord by being born in our source, Brahman. Being born in our source implies being born as our source. In other words, ceasing to rise as ego and thereby remaining as we are. And because Brahman, what we actually are, because it is eternal, it is, as Bhagavan describes it as, it is daily navan. It's new every day. That is one who is born as Brahman. He's born as that which is ever new, because it's beyond time. So there's no aging for it. So it's eternally new, eternally fresh. So that is the real birth. So these three verses, though they were this third one was composed at a different time and is included in a different work, we can take them all as a set. They are best read together as a set, because the verse in Ulurunapta Bandham is clarifying what is. I mean, these verses are self-explanatory, but it casts further light on what Bhagavan is meaning here. It clarifies still further the meaning of what Bhagavan is saying in these two verses, particularly in the first of these two verses, verse 4. So does anyone have any questions about any of these verses or the ideas that Bhagavan is expressing here?
Thank you, Michael. You wrote an article on 31st December 2020. Do you remember?
Yes, I think.
If you can access that,
in which I
if you
wrote
can
about
access that article, and I would like you to read your bullet number 4 on that.
Okay, I will do that. As I wrote at the beginning of this article, Bhagavan composed these two birthday verses 4 and 5 of Upadēśa Taṉippākkaļ, in 1912, on the day when devotees celebrate his birthday for the first time. Do these verses therefore mean that it is wrong for us to celebrate his birthday? I think this would be an overly simplistic interpretation of what he intended us to learn from them. He certainly implied that we should pause and reflect on whether our own or anyone else's birthday is a suitable occasion to celebrate. But this does not necessarily mean that he considered it wrong for us to celebrate his birthday, because he would have understood that this is a natural expression of our devotion to him. What we need to understand from these verses is that he took every suitable opportunity to turn our attention back to ourselves and to remind us that the real aim of our life should be to investigate ourselves in order to know what we actually are. So the first celebration of his birthday was one more opportunity for him to do so. I don't know before I read on further, another idea occurred to me. It's good to celebrate Bhagavan's birthday. Every year we celebrate Bhagavan's Jayanti, but we should take the celebration of his Jayanti as we should think about what is the significance of Bhagavan's birth. Why was Bhagavan born? He was born to teach us this path of self-investigation so that we should return to our source and be reborn in our source. So that is the purpose of his birthday. So the best way to celebrate his birthday is to turn our attention within and to merge back into our source. So celebrating his birthday outwardly is okay, but we should take that celebration as another opportunity for us to remind ourselves why he was born. He was born so that we should die. There's a verse by Murugan. I remember Sadhu Om, when Sadhu Om was editing Ramanajnana Bodham, he used to often tell me the meaning of the verses that we were arranging in order. And I remember one of the verses, Murugan says, because the ever unborn has taken birth, many, that is, countless never dyings have died. What you mean, the ever unborn is Bhagavan, because he's the eternal reality. So he is never born. But he has taken birth so that these never dying egos should die. So Murugan said, because the ever unborn has taken birth, many of these never dyings mean these egos that will never die, they have died. It's a beautiful, beautiful idea. So to continue what I had written here, as he taught us, the real purpose of the manifestation of Guru in human form is to teach us that the unalloyed happiness that we are all seeking is our own real nature, and that to experience it, we must therefore turn our attention back within to investigate ourselves and thereby be aware of ourselves as we actually are. Therefore, he never encouraged us to worship his outward form, but instead encouraged us repeatedly and persistently to turn back within to face ourselves alone, because it is only by knowing and loving ourselves as we actually are that we can know and love him as he actually is, since he is nothing other than what we actually are. Therefore, it may not be wrong for us to celebrate his birthday as a natural expression of our love for him, but it would be wrong for us either to forget that the real purpose of his appearance in our life is only to turn our attention back within and thereby enable us to experience ourselves as the infinite and eternal happiness. It would also be wrong for us to neglect the need for us to persevere in trying to be more and more keenly and persistently self-attentive. This, I believe, is what he is reminding us through these verses.
That's a good summary and intent behind these verses. Do you want to add anything else? to the last comment?
No, I think I've added all that has come to my mind now. I'm sure there's much more that can be, there's always more that can be said about Bhagavan's verses because there's so much, there's the meaning of the verses. There's also a huge amount of implication underlying those, the surface meaning.
Right. So the purpose of Bhagavan's birth, as you said, he was born, so we will die, meaning we as ego will die.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was born, meaning the Aru Uriyadathu, the formless took a form.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aru remainder.
Yeah. And that's the verse.
Form.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Michael. So if there are any questions pertaining to this verse, you can post in the chat box and we'll
I
post
saw
it to Michael.
one question popped up, something about what should be our attitude to the world.
Yeah, just came in. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. What then is appropriate attitude toward the world? In my practice, I find a growing disinterest, bordering on disappointment in and distance from the world, people, ideals, celebrations such as holidays, etc. However, this attitude seems to contradict the loving interest Sri Ramana showed animals and all. Is an indifference to the world necessary for continued turning within?
Why did Bhagavan love animals? And I mean, animals includes all us human animals also. That is, he loved all jivas. He loved them because he is the reality of each and every one of us. So he is the reality of every squirrel, every monkey, every dog, every leopard, every cow, every creature. He's the reality of them all, and just as he is our own reality. That is why he loved them. So, but what we saw outwardly as Bhagavan's love of animals and his love of all people, but not only good people, bad people equally. Bhagavan had equal love for all. He had love for them because he didn't see anything as other than himself. So that what we see outwardly as his love for this one and this one and this one and this one is actually an outward expression of that is the underlying reality of that is his love for himself as he actually is, because what he actually is the reality of every living, every jiva. Ariyati tara jivara dahavari guhail arivairami paramatuman arunachala ramanan. Arunachala Ramana is the Paramatma which rejoices as awareness in the cave of the heart lotus of all the different jivas, beginning with Hari, beginning with the highest God, down to the smallest insect. He is that which is rejoicing as awareness in the heart of all of them. That is, he's blissfully existing as awareness in the heart of all of them. So that is Bhagavan's reality. That is what we see Bhagavan loving Lakshmi the cow and Jackie the dog and the Nandi and the lame monkey and all these different creatures. We see Bhagavan loving them, but the reality of this is the nature of his being. His being is infinite love, because it's the nature. It's the nature of all of us to love ourselves. And for Bhagavan, there is nothing other than himself. So he loves all as himself. Oh, yeah. So our attitude to the world, what should our attitude be? How did that is, if we want to experience the love that Bhagavan experienced for all, we must experience ourselves as Bhagavan. So long as we experience ourselves as a finite individual, whatever love we have for others, whether human or animal, is always going to be partial. It's always going to be a divided love because we always, as Bhagavan said, we always have greatest love for ourselves. So if we take ourselves to be a person, above all other things, we love this person. We're most concerned about this person we take ourselves to be. So the love that we show to others is always a partial love. So if we want to love our neighbor as ourselves, as it said, as I think Jesus says, love the Lord thy God with thy whole heart, soul, and whatever, and love thy neighbor as thyself. How can we love our neighbor as ourselves if we don't experience our neighbor as ourself? So long as we experience self and other, so long as we experience that divide, our love is also going to be less, whatever love we have for others will always be less than perfect. So how do we experience ourselves, or how do we experience Bhagavan as he experienced himself? Bhagavan is ourself. Bhagavan is what we actually are. So by knowing ourselves as we actually are, we will know Bhagavan as he knows himself. And for that, what should our attitude towards the world be? We should take the world as a reminder to whatever appears. It's so many phenomena appearing in this world. Some phenomena we like, some phenomena we dislike. We like peace in the world. We don't like wars. We like health. We don't like sickness, and so on. We have so many likes and dislikes. But whether it's something we like or something we don't like, to whom does it appear? That should be our attitude. That is, we see so many things happening in the world. We see so many expressions of kindness and love and generosity. And we also see so much cruelty in this world. But all these things, to whom do they all appear? In a dream, we may see so many good things and so many bad things. But they appear to be real only because we mistake ourselves to be a body within that dream. Likewise, all the events in this world, all the good things and bad things in this world, they all appear only because we take this body to be I. And so long as we are seeing the world, we inevitably see ourselves as a body within that world. So if we want to know ourselves as we actually are, our attitude towards the world should be, this world appears to remind me of myself, the one to whom it appears. So our attitude towards the world, we should take it as a loving reminder given by Bhagavan for us to turn our attention back to ourselves. The more we turn our attention back to ourselves, the more we will naturally we will become more and more indifferent to the world. Yes, terrible things are happening in the world. Some good things are also happening. But these are all just an appearance. None of these things are real. It's all just a dream, ultimately. So what we should seek to know is the reality of ourself, the one to whom all these things appear. This simple question that Bhagavan put to us, which is just one word in Tamil, Yaruku, or even he can, in some verses, like in the 7th verse of Arunachala Ashtakam, he puts it even in the briefest possible way in Tamil, which is Aku. Aku, to whom? Eku, to me. Aku, Eku. So this is the heart of Bhagavan's teachings. He's pointing out to us that whatever appears, we should be investigating ourself, the one to whom it appears. So whatever appears, nothing can appear if there's nothing for it to appear to. That is, there has to be an awareness in order for anything to appear, because all things that appear, they appear to something that is aware, namely to ego. But this ego is not the real awareness. So what we should be investigating is the reality of ego, what this ego actually is. So our attitude towards the world should be to whom, to whom, to whom.
Thank you. That was perfect. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Bhagavan's teachings are perfect, beautiful. What more can we say?
Thank you, Michael. There is a comment from Evelina. Can you access it? Can you read it out loud, and then you can comment on it?
Wait a second,
And if not, I can read it.
and I'm just looking. Here's the chat. Okay, I was looking in the wrong place. Okay. When we fundamentally understand with our truly one, when we fundamentally understand, I think maybe it's, we are truly one with creation, then we would also understand fundamentally that we are part of the ecosystem and we are a collective network that influences one another, which is also fundamental grasp. Ignorance has chosen to mess with creation, however, bad move. Oh, you don't have to. I was just sharing a thought earlier. Thank you. Or observation, I should clarify.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. When we say we are truly one with creation, we as an individual are a part of this creation. But the underlying reality of both us, the individual, and the creation that we see, the underlying reality is the real one. So we are one with creation in two senses. Firstly, this creation has no existence independent of us, because this is just a dream, and the dream doesn't exist independent of the dreamer. So in that sense, the dream and the dreamer are one. But in a deeper sense, the underlying reality of the dreamer is the underlying reality of the dream. That underlying reality is the one reality. That is what we actually are. So, yes, so long as we take ourselves to be, so long as we experience ourselves as an individual in this world, we obviously should care for creation. We should care for the environment. We should care for all the other creatures with whom we seem to be sharing this world. And we're all interconnected. That is, if we mess up this environment in which we are living, it's going to be suffering for everyone. It's going to be suffering for all the other creatures we're sharing this environment with, and we're also going to suffer a consequence. We can't, that is, humanity is so reckless in destroying this Mother Earth, which we all depend upon for our survival. So from that, at that level, yes, it's good to consider ourselves to be one with nature, or at least a part of nature, and to not forget as our bodily existence is wholly dependent upon the this environment, this nature in which we can't live in isolation. We depend upon so many other things. We depend upon plants for food, and all the different species of animals, and they all have their role to play within the ecosystem, a life system in which we all live. But that's all at the physical level. Bhagavan is drawing our attention to something much deeper, which is what is the underlying reality of all these things. This whole world and the ecosystem exist in whose view? In my view. So who am I? If we turn our attention back to ourselves and find out the reality of ourselves, we will find that all these other things that have appeared were just a dream. And therefore the dream doesn't exist independent of the dreamer, and the dreamer doesn't exist independent of its underlying reality. So we need to go back to our source, to the underlying reality, to know what we actually are. Of course, so long as we're behaving in this world, we should behave in a way that causes minimum harm to other creatures and to the environment we share with other creatures. But that's not the purpose of our life. Otherwise, we'll be going through. I mean, we've been going through so many births and deaths for so many countless lives. This has been going on. So it's at a superficial level. We have, yes, so long as we take ourselves to be the body, we should care for the environment, we should care for other creatures. But if we want the greatest good we can do to all is to wake up from this dream. Because in a dream we see suffering. How to put an end to the suffering we see in the dream? The simple solution is to wake up. When we wake up, we don't worry about all those, or how can I help all those starving people I saw in my dream? That concern is there so long as we're dreaming. When we wake up from a dream, that concern dissolves because we recognize that it was all just a mental fabrication.
Namaskar, Michael. I had a question from the Houston Center. So from today's verses, we're largely focusing on, all right, right now you're celebrating a birthday, it's kind of a dead corpse, right? And it's like when your ego really dies, or ego dissolution is the place when you're really kind of born, right? So my sort of simplistic question is, one is, how do you really know that it is A, dissolved? And B, the other simplistic question is like, hey, is there like a particular time or day you're like, okay, this is my real birth, when my ego really got died, right? So how do you sort of, can you figure that out? And how do you know that?
You will never know the death of ego. Because in whose view does ego exist? Only in the view of ego. So when ego ceases to exist, we remain as we actually are. In the view of what we actually are, there never was any ego. So we will know, but what we will know when ego dies is not, oh, ego is now dead. We will know, I alone am. Nothing other than I has ever existed. Their I doesn't mean this ego I, it means the real I, the underlying reality of ego, that pure being awareness, which is infinite happiness, Ananda, and infinite love, Priya. That is the reality. That is what we actually are. Is that a satisfactory answer?
Yeah. Yes. He says yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Right. So, Look, I was wondering, how did Swami Sadhu Om celebrate the occasion of Bhagavan's birthday?
Like we all celebrate. I mean, it's for us. We to celebrate our own birthday is foolish, but as Bhagavan makes clear in these verses. But it is natural for us to celebrate Bhagavan's birthday because it's why Bhagavan was born, only to save us from birth and death.
So on the day of his birthday, you reinforce that belief, you reinforce, we motivate ourselves to practice more and more.
Exactly. But we should take every day as that exactly. Is Bhagavan is appearing in our life. That is, from the moment when he first appeared in our life, he has been present in our life ever since. So we should take every day as a special day to remind ourselves to attend to ourselves.
Okay, so Sanjay emailed me this question, Sanjay Loya. Apparently you once said, so I'm quoting him quoting you, the child may be born to us, but it's not our child. Every child is its own individual. We are parents to the body, but we're not parents to the soul. Can you please talk a bit more about this?
Yes, that is, each of us, when we're born in this world, we have parents. And when we are small, we wholly depend upon our parents for everything, for feeding us and everything. As we grow up, we become more and more independent. And by the time we are adults, we want to be independent. We want to have our own life. We don't want to be forever dependent on our parents. In fact, as our parents get older, it's natural for the elderly parents to depend upon the children rather than vice versa. That's how that's usually the case in traditional societies. In the modern day world, even that parents like to be independent. Children don't like to be their parents to be a burden to them because they've got their own family and everything. So it's different in the modern day world. But we are each individuals. So what are our parents responsible for? Our parents are responsible for, our parents, or we as parents, we're responsible for bringing up our children, and we try to influence our children to have good values and to understand to respect others, to be kind to others, we try to teach good qualities to our children. And not all, we can't expect, just because we're interested in this spiritual path, we can't expect our children are necessarily going to be interested. But we at least give them some exposure to these things. And sometimes children have the same interests as their parents. In many cases, children develop interests of their own. So we can't expect our children to, for example, we are all following Bhagavan. We can't expect our children necessarily to follow Bhagavan. They may have some sort of devotion to Bhagavan in an ordinary sense, but not to be deep. Then they may not be deeply committed to following Bhagavan's path. And sometimes you have very good parents who have very bad children. Sometimes you've got very bad parents who've got very good children. So ultimately, each one of us is an individual. We are born with our own vasanas and our own past karmas. And according to our vasanas, our character, our character develops according to our vasanas. This is why sometimes very good parents have very bad children, and vice versa. It's all according to the vasanas. So we do what we can for our children, and even when our children are grown up, we still. For us, they'll always be. They'll always be our children. So we always have that love and affection for them. But we also, for their own good, we want our children to become independent and not depend upon us as they depend upon us as small children. So, a parent-child relationship, it's a special relationship, but it's a relationship between individuals. So some parents are very possessive of their children. They have very high expectations of their children. And those who have high expectations of their children are usually disappointed, because usually the children turn out not as we expect them to be, because they're separate individuals. They've got their own life. They've got their own interests. They come with their own set of vasanas. And we each have our own prarabdha. The fact that a child is born to us means there's some karmic connection there. There's a reason why this child was born to us and some other child was born to someone else. These are all connected. So there are connections there, but we are each a separate individual. So we should respect our children as individuals. Not like some parents consider their children almost to be their property. And if their children don't want to do what the parents want to do, the parents get angry. That is a very, very immature attitude. So our attitude as parents should be, this child has been given to us by Bhagavan. Out of our love for Bhagavan, we take care of this child. We try to bring them up in a good manner, but ultimately it's not our responsibility, it's Bhagavan's responsibility. Because he's placed this child under our care, we try to raise it with love and kindness and everything. But we shouldn't have any expectations of our children. We should let them develop in their own way. Of course, we try to influence them to follow a good path in life, to be good individuals. But it's not, it's all as Krishna says in Gita, you have the right to the action, not to a fruit thereof. So our adhikara is to take care of our children and raise them up. We have no adhikara over how they turn out. That is the fruit. So they turn out as according to their gunas and karmas that each of us develop as individual.
Practically, it's very, practically it's also a bit challenging. Sometimes I've seen parents put a lot of effort, and then something sort of totally opposite happens.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking to see that happen. Yeah. The problem is, as what you say is right, but things like that happen frequently. It's very disheartening, and that's one of the reasons why the fertility rate is decreasing worldwide. People are having less and less children, basically. And you're aware, right? Even in India, it's now. I don't know about the whole India, but in Tamil Nadu is right now, as we speak, it's 1.8, which is less than the replacement rate. The United States is much lower, 1.6 or something. And Japan, and some countries like Japan, it's basically 1 in that range. So
Yeah.
we're having a major issue there. The motivation to have children is becoming less and less
Yeah.
through worldwide. It's a worldwide phenomenon.
Maybe it's not such an issue. Maybe the world would be a better place if because we create so much problem in this world. If there are fewer of them, maybe the world would be better off. Nature has its own way of balancing.
Yeah. So I don't know
So,
where this is
yeah,
heading towards, but I'm just pointing out
Yeah,
that
yeah, I know.
overall, we need to have replacement rate, fertility rate should be at 2.1 for the population to be stable, but
Yeah.
it's dropping, worldwide. So anyway,
Thank you, sir.
Sanjay, was the answer I gave satisfactory?
Yes, sir. It was satisfactory. My main concern was how to get over my attachment with my children, that they are my children and I have to take care of them. Now they're adults, but that feeling is still there till they are married, that somehow they are my responsibility. That feeling I have to get over. That was my concern.
Even after they're married, that you'll still be feeling that your responsibility. This is natural. As parents, we naturally feel responsibility for our children. But how to overcome the attachment? To whom is the attachment? The same remedy for everything. This attachment arises for us. So we investigate ourselves. And so if we are detached, that detached doesn't mean unloving. We continue to love our children, but in a detached manner that is better for us and better for our children. If we are very attached, very possessive, it's a burden for the children to have parents who are overly attached. Like some parents have very specific ambitions for their children. They want their children to be doctor or engineer or politician or academic or whatever or to become a billionaire or whatever it is. If you have expectations of your children, you're putting a huge burden on them, which is unfair. Let each child grow in their own way. We each have our own prarabdha, we each have our own subhava. So if everyone has to live their own life ultimately. So it doesn't mean we cease to care. Of course we care, but we need to be detached. And sometimes that is, if we're honest with ourselves, we all make mistakes in life. We can't prevent our children making mistakes. And sometimes it's good to allow the children to make their own mistakes because we all learn from the mistakes we make. So just like we have lived our life, we have to let them live their life. We try to guide them in a good path. We offer them good advice and everything. But it's up to them how they take the advice and how they view things. I mean, we can't live someone else's life for them.
They are their own individuals, as you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and this is particularly in the modern day world. Society in the modern day world is very different to how it was in more traditional societies. In more traditional societies, there were larger families, and families tended to be all living together. I mean, often brothers would all live together. They may carry on the family business together or family trade or whatever it is, or they continue to cultivate the family farm together. And so it's all one big family. So in a traditional society, this is where the caste system ultimately came from. Usually children in traditional societies, follow the same trade as the parents. So if the father is a carpenter, he'll teach his child to be a carpenter. If he's a potter, he'll teach his child to be a potter. If he's a king, he teaches his child to be a king. If he's a soldier, he teaches his child to be a soldier. If he's a merchant, he teaches his child to be a merchant. That is, in traditional societies, that's how it, even then it doesn't always work. Often the children are completely different from the parent. The father may be a very successful merchant, but the child is only interested in religious pursuits and may go and take sannyasa, much to the disappointment of the father. But I mean, that happens even in traditional societies, but in the modern day society, it's even more so. There's so many options, different types of life, and often children don't follow the same trade or the same profession as their parents. Often they go in a completely different direction. So it's important to that is part of the caring for a child, is to give them that freedom, that independence, let them make their own choices.
Agreed, sir. Agreed, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, right.
Good, thank you, Michael. There's a comment from Ian. I'm going to read it. The second part of this is not able to understand, but I'll just read it the way it is written. This seems to tie into aparigraha. Is that correct? As in, the gift that should be given is simply turning inward on all occasions, the gift for all.
So, sorry, can you say the first part? I didn't quite catch both.
The question part I'll read. That is,
Yes.
So this seems to tie into aparigraha. Is that correct? So maybe you could just answer that.
That word, it rings a bell, but I've forgotten what it means.
Yeah, I'm just checking online. It's a Sanskrit term that translates to non-possessiveness or non-grasping.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental principle in yoga and various Indian philosophies, including
exactly.
Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism. It
Yeah.
encourages individuals to let go of excessive attachments and desires, fostering a simpler and more mindful way of living.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if we have this attitude towards our children, it's better for our children, because they can, if you plant a small tree sapling, at first you tie it to a stake, but you don't keep it tied to a stake forever. So long as it's a sapling, it needs the support of a stake. But when it grows up, if you keep it tied to the stake, that the tie will begin to restrict its growth. So, and also, if it's always depending on something else to support it, it won't develop the strength. So you keep it tied to a stake for a few years, and once it develops some strength of its own, you remove the tie, remove the stake, and you let it grow on its own. So, like that with our children, we should allow them to develop their own strength, not to be always dependent upon us. So by our being detached, detachment doesn't mean lack of love, lack of concern. Yes, of course, it's natural for parents to love their children. It's natural for parents to be concerned about their children. But we should love them in a detached manner. We shouldn't love them as they are mine. They must do what I want. That's unfair on the children. We should respect them as individuals. And for our own good, being detached is good for us, for our own spiritual development.
Right.
That is, grasping is the whole problem. As Bhagavan says, Uh, um, grasping form, it comes into being. Grasping form, it stands. Grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes abundantly. This is Bhagavan's description of ego. So grasping is the very nature of ego. If we want to be free of ego, we need to give up grasping. But because the very nature of ego is to grasp, it is not possible for ego to give up grasping. So how can we free ourselves from grasping? We must grasp our own being, grasp ourselves. In other words, we should attend only to ourselves. That is how we let go of everything else. There's a verse in Tirukkural that Bhagavan often used to refer to, in which it said, Patratran, I've forgotten the exact verse.
Patratran patrine, apatrai patriha patru vidarku.
Yes, yes. Be attached to he who is, in order to be free of attachment, be attached to he who is free of attachment. By that attachment, free yourself from attachment. I think that's the meaning, isn't it?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So he who is free of attachment is God, who is shining in our heart as our own self. So that is what we should attach ourselves to.
Thank you, Michael. Last question from Robert Delkesh. Go ahead, Robert.
Michael, as an Anglican priest, I spent a lifetime preaching ethics, not just ethics, but primarily ethics. In other words, how to live your life well.
Yeah.
What Bhagavan has, and you, through you, and Houston and Kumar and others have brought me to realize is that even this embodied reality is just a dream. And
Yes.
when you mentioned ajata, the paramartika reality,
Yeah.
that all of this is just a dream, there is no creation.
Yes.
Ever since you said that, that understanding has been growing in me, and I'm sure others. And so when we spend a lot of time talking about how to live a better embodied life, there's a part of me that's whispering, but it's just a bloody dream, Robert. And you want to wake up. And so it's balancing. And you and I've sent you an email about this, and you said, anyway, bottom line is I find myself this tremendous, what's the word, disposition, there's a bias, if you will, towards in any reflection, bending towards the ajata, not to disconnect or the paramartika, but realizing that it's just an illusion anyway. So it's not to discount it, but it's not to give it a whole lot of weight. And when we have these long discussions about living an ethical life and training our children up, there's a little part of me that's saying, but it's just a dream. Comments?
Yes, it is a dream, but in a dream, as Bhagavan said, dream hunger is quenched by dream food. Dream thirst is quenched by dream water. So long as we are experiencing ourselves as part of this dream, we must behave in this dream appropriately. So that's what, when we're talking about our children, we're talking at that level. But yes, ultimately, that is, if we understand this, when this is a dream, this helps us to a great extent to live our life in a detached manner. One other point to clarify, there's a distinction between, if we say this is a dream, that is not ajata, that is drishti shrishti. Ajata says there's no dream at all.
Understood, yeah. I get that.
Yeah. That is, ajata is the final experience, because if all this is a dream, it all depends for its seeming reality, well, it depends for its entire appearance on the dreamer. If the dreamer investigates itself, the dreamer is ego, if a dreamer investigates itself and knows its own reality, knowing its own reality means being its own reality, it ceases to be ego, ego is found to be ever unreal, then, so the final truth has to be ajata. Because if ego is unreal, if there never was anything such as ego, then there never was any world, never was any dream or anything. So the ultimate truth is ajata. But the teaching, the practice, is of a level of drishti shrishti. In drishti shrishti, all this is a dream. So we should look upon it as a dream and turn our attention within. But so long as we are still experiencing ourselves as an individual in the dream, our outward behavior should be appropriate to the circumstances. So as a parent, we have responsibility, particularly when our children are small. We definitely have a responsibility. We don't say, oh, it's all a dream, I can just neglect my child. No. But there's no wrong, there's no contradiction, because all the actions we do, all the care we take of our children, the love we have for our spouse, our husband or wife, the love we have for our parents, all these things, this is all a part of a dream. So the dream, that whatever actions we do should be appropriate to the dream, because the actions themselves are a part of the dream.
Understanding also that even those actions, to think that we are operating from an individual agency, the ability to choose and do,
yes,
is a nice thing to think, but that's just not true. What's going to happen is going to happen. What's not going to happen is not going to happen.
Yes, but that is, Bhagavan made that very clear. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. But though what is going to happen is predetermined, our likes and dislikes are not predetermined. That is, we determine our likes and dislikes. So we, as Bhagavan made clear, all that we are given to experience is predetermined. It is prarabdha. But we do have freedom of will and we do have freedom of action. That means, for example, it may be my destiny to live in poverty all my life. That doesn't stop me wanting to be rich. It doesn't stop me trying to be rich. So
I understand that.
Yeah.
But the thought that somehow or other, my agency, my separate ability to make a choice and to determine reality is an absolute delusion.
It is, yes. That is the reason why Bhagavan taught us this law of karma, to make us understand that any effort we make outwardly is ultimately futile, because we simply cannot change the course of events. Things are going to happen as they're going to happen. So where should we direct our effort? Not into trying to change the external world. We should direct our effort to investigate the one to whom this world appears.
Subsidence, constant subsidence.
Exactly. Subside. That is the whole of Bhagavan's teachings. And that subsidence is brought about by turning our attention back towards ourself, the one to whom all these things appear.
Right. But to the extent that any action is performed, that should be done with dedicated to God, a law of God.
Exactly.
Okay. So before we conclude, I was thinking, can you think of any moment in your life, on Bhagavan's birthday that was very emotional? Is there anything that you can think of, either when you are with Sadhu Om or after he left the body? I'll let you think for a few seconds and then reflect on it.
I can't say anything particularly associated with Bhagavan's birthday. No, there's nothing comes to my mind.
Nothing in particular. Okay. Okay.
And ultimately, whatever we experience is not important. We are here to investigate the experiencer. So even if I had some wonderful experience on Bhagavan Jayanti or at any other time, to whom is that experience? Even if Bhagavan appears in name and form, to whom does he appear?
The day that Nanyar landed in your hands, Michael.
Yeah.
It's your birthday.
That's my real birthday, exactly, yes. Exactly.
Can I say one thing before you close?
Yes, certainly.
This is Barbara. One of the questions had to do with how do you know when you reached it? And one of my responses that comes from deep reading of Guru Vattaka is the suffering stops. Then the peace becomes so prevalent. But to me, that's really important because what brought me to Bhagavan was suffering.
Yes.
So the idea that suffering is a delusion is huge for me.
Yes.
And the experience of even for glimpses of not experiencing that suffering is a great proof of Bhagavan's teaching.
Yes.
Amen.
But when will all suffering come to an end? When will real lasting peace be experienced?
When you're established.
Yeah, exactly. What is the one thing that disturbs peace? It is our rising
ego.
Yeah. So ceasing
exactly.
to rise as ego, that is the ultimate, that's the ultimate goal.
Correct.
That is the eternal peace. That is being as we actually are.